What's going on, people? Welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to be talking about the total amount of money I spent on my trip for Italy and Greece. My friend and I just wrapped up a 19-day trip to Italy and Greece in October of this year, and I spent $1,817.90. Yes, I got it down to the cent because I literally was tracking every single one of my costs, from a bottle of water to having to use the restroom to dinners, lunches, attractions, transportation, baggage fees, miscellaneous costs such as black leggings that I had to buy because my leggings tore in the middle of my trip. My biggest expense by far was my accommodation. Our Airbnb, we stayed at Airbnbs all across Italy and Greece. Like every single accommodation we stayed at was an Airbnb. We didn't stay at any hotels, we didn't stay at any hostels, or anything else. So if you don't know what Airbnb is actually a service that you can use. People rent out their homes to you. It could be anything from a small room to a villa, a mansion. I've seen tents in people's backyards. I've seen motorhomes. I've seen boats, whatever. It's really any type of real estate where anybody can maybe sleep in. And it's always a lot cheaper than a hotel. And honestly, I prefer Airbnb just because I feel like I am coming back to a home every night versus a hotel, which there's nothing wrong with a hotel. Hotels are awesome. Maybe if you're going on a shorter trip, hotels might be more feasible for you budget-wise, but if you're trying to stretch those coins and save some money, honestly, Airbnb is the way to go. It's great. I've used it in the US, I've used it in Asia, I've used it in Europe, I've used it in Cuba. It's just, I don't know, I forever will stand for Airbnb. It's the shit. So Airbnb was my top cost, and that was $493. That was my portion. So total we spent $986 on Airbnb. So that's 18 nights of accommodation for less than $1,000 for two people, right? Which is very reasonable, honestly. If you go and try to find a hotel, go to hotels.com and try to find a hotel in Rome, I guarantee you you're not gonna be able to do this same thing in that budget range. Second highest cost was food, of course, because a girl gotta eat. And that was $477.99. So I just rounded up to $478 or $480, whatever. Still in the 400s. And honestly, food is pretty, it's not expensive in Italy. There are definitely some cities that are cheaper than others. I want to say Venice was a lot pricier than Milan. Greece was definitely cheaper. The food in Greece was a lot cheaper, and it was my favorite. It was so good. Like, you got a meal at a restaurant that was right down, say, from our Airbnb for dinner for like €7. And it was 2 pork chops and fries. And it was just it was so good. I couldn't believe how cheap it was. But then we went to Venice. I mean, we were in Venice and we spent so much money on food there. But honestly, you can definitely cut back on food prices. A lot of our Airbnbs serve breakfast, so we didn't have to buy breakfast outside. We also had a lot of snacks that we had packed beforehand just for transit purposes. I always travel with like a huge Ziploc of snacks just because I'm not trying to be caught off guard. You know, like, I never know when I'm gonna eat again, so I need snacks to keep me going. For the most part, we would only eat out once a day. So that was us eating out once, maybe twice a day. And then also everything extra, like, you know, gelato, which I'm pretty sure my food cost probably would be like $100 less if I didn't eat gelato, because I'm pretty sure I had gelato like every other day. Maybe every day, I don't even know, but it was just so good, and I was on vacation, and why not, like, you know? But my third biggest cost were flights, and I paid $309.40 total for my flights, and that's every single one of my flights. That's my flight I'm from DC, so my friend and I had to fly up to New York to catch our flight to Milan. And then that includes my round trip tickets to Milan, as well as our in-country tickets. Like, we flew from Venice to Santorini, Santorini to Rome, and Rome to Athens. So that's, no, I lied. I mixed that all up, but whatever. That was 3 internal flights, right? So $309. And I know that's not a lot of money Honestly, I didn't have to pay for my flight to Italy. My flight from JFK to Milan, the round trip flight, was completely free. And that's because I travel hacked my flight. And I'm going to talk about that in another video. If you're flying in Europe, we used Ryanair and Volotea, I think was the name of the airline. Volotea, but they're all budget airlines. Think of if you're in the States, think of a Spirit or a Frontier Airlines of Europe. But they're so cheap. You can get tickets for 30 euros, you know, like to go from city to city. But you do have to be careful. And this is why some of my costs were a little higher. I have a miscellaneous area. You do have to be careful because the baggage limit on these flights is very, very strict. I think for Ryanair was maybe 7 kilograms total. Like your bag can't be more than that if you're carrying it on. Otherwise, they'll charge you. I remember Volotea or whatever. If your bag was more than 9 kilograms or 10 kilograms total, and that's for your carry-on, they would charge you 60. Like if you carried it on, right? Like say you went through security, you got to the gate and they weigh your bag and they're like, no, your bag's too big, like you need to check this. They were gonna charge us 60 euros at the door to check our bag. So me and my friend were like, yeah, we're not about to take this risk. Let's just go ahead and prepay for like the upcharge on a bag, which was like maybe 20 something dollars. And in hindsight, I think both of our bags were under the weight, but we weren't sure. And we were like, you know, we were a little scared. So we're like, nah, we're just going to go ahead and pay this little $20 right now instead of them hitting us with the 60 euros later. So yeah, so just be mindful of when you're booking these budget airlines, you know, there's like these little hidden fees and hidden charges everywhere. So just read the fine print and don't be mad when they try to hit you on the head for some bread, okay? Moving on. So my next highest cost were attractions, and that came up to $178.89. And I think the most expensive attraction that we saw maybe was the Vatican Museums, and that was 20 euros. And again, I think that was only 20 euros because we bought our tickets ahead of time online, and they added maybe an extra 4 euro surcharge or something. I think it might only be 16 euros if you get the Vatican tickets like at the Vatican while, you know, just stand in line and buy tickets. But again, we don't want to do that just because we didn't want to. We were going on a Saturday and we thought it would be hella crowded. So we were like, no, let's just go ahead and buy our tickets ahead of time so we can just, you know, slide right in there. The Acropolis in Athens was 15 euros. And then also we did a full day tour in Santorini, which was like 40 something euros. So my transportation category, I only included transportation once we got to the city. Like I didn't include like flights, trains, and, you know, like transportation getting us there. My transportation category basically was just like public transportation within the cities or like cabs and stuff like that. And that was $155.72. And I think we did a really good job here because we refused to take cabs or Ubers or anything like that just because we knew we were going to be there for so long that we couldn't just take cabs. Also, it's just so much better taking public transportation. Honestly, you get to see more like, you know, how the locals are living, how the locals are getting around. And honestly, Italy has a very efficient underground. I would say in Rome and Milan, we took the subway, underground subway. And then also in Venice we didn't. Venice we just took a tram. And Florence we also didn't because Florence was very walkable. And in Athens, we were very close. We could walk everywhere. And then Santorini they have buses there, but we were there in a slower season, so the buses were not as frequent, and the schedule wasn't really followed. So we walked a lot because we were close to a lot of things that we can walk to. And then we also took that one-day tour. That was the reason we took that tour because it would have been so much harder for us to see all these things if we didn't have like, you know, a bus that could take us around. And we did take a couple cabs in Santorini though because our flight was really, really early and we couldn't take the bus that day. And also we took a cab to a winery. So we took 3 cabs total, and that was just in Santorini. But for the rest of the time, we took public buses, trains, we did everything, trams. And it was just it was easy to navigate, honestly. I feel like if you can read, you can take these trains. It's not that hard. If you live in New York City, like You can take the train anywhere in the world. I've taken y'all subway. That joint is so confusing. If you can get around in New York City, you can get around anywhere, like literally. Maybe except for Tokyo, because Tokyo was a little crazy too. But honestly, Google Maps is a lifesaver. If you have Google Maps, if you have access to data on your phone, you can pretty much get around anywhere. Like Google Maps will break it down for you. It'll tell you what train you need to get on, in what direction, what stop you need to get off, where you need to transfer, all of that. And even if you don't have access to data, if you have Wi-Fi at your accommodation, just look it up beforehand, take a screenshot, and just look at it on your phone. And if not, you can just ask somebody. People are usually very helpful. They're usually very friendly, and they'll help you get around, and just lean on the kindness of strangers. And then my next highest expense was miscellaneous, and in this category, it was $132. And in this category, I included those bag fees that I paid for those airlines because I was scared and didn't want to, pay 60 euros. So I think there were 3 different flights, so maybe we paid like $20 each for those. And then I also made a trip to H&M because when I was in Athens, my freaking leggings had a huge ass hole in them. So I had to get some new black leggings. And also Athens was hot as hell. Like, it was so damn hot. It was October. Middle of October was like 82 degrees. And I bought a dress at H&M so I could, wear it the next day, because I really none of my clothes were appropriate. I packed for fall. My lowest expense, and it was the train category. And here I include the trains that from each city. Like, the first train we took was from Milan to Venice. We took 4 total trains. We took one from Milan to Venice, Rome to Florence, Florence to Saint-Terre, and then Saint-Terre back to Venice. So that was $70. Which I think is pretty reasonable for taking 4 trains within the country to different cities. Like, just think about taking a train to New York or Philly. If you're like from here to, I'm in DC, so if I'm trying to take a train to New York, the Saver Award, which is always the worst time, is $59, right? It's always like the 3 a.m. train that nobody wants to take. That's one to go from one city to another, and we went to 4 places. So I feel like that was a really good deal. So total, again, I spent $1,817.90, but literally that's for everything. So I think it's very reasonable if you're on an in-between budget. Like, you're not backpacker, but you're not luxury. It's kind of like in between. It's the balance. And again, it's not like you're spending $1,800 right off the bat. Like, we booked a lot of these things in advance, especially the flights and accommodation. That way we could break out our costs. It wasn't all at one time. Bam, bam, you're about to drop 2 stacks on this trip. Like, obviously that's a lot of bread. But if you break it out like over a few months, or even like 6 months, I think we got our flights like 6 months ahead of time. So it's definitely worth it. I think it's doable. I think it's doable if you plan ahead, if you save your money. It's definitely not no last minute, I'm gonna go to Italy trip. You will end up spending so much more money. So even if you decide to go for a shorter period of time, like say you're going for a week, right? You can cut these costs by so much more. This was just our cost because we wanted to go to all these places and wanted to make it a long trip. So yeah, please let me know if you have any questions about Italy, about Greece, about budgeting for travel, about Airbnb, anything. Like, I'm really just here to help. I'm not an expert. I'm just an enthusiast. I love travel. I love it so much that I have to do it all the time. That's why I do it on a budget, because I'm not rich. So yeah, let me know if you have questions, and I'll talk to you later.